Hey there guys, a lot of my fanmates have requested these more angry James yelling at camera videos, but I believe for every negative video I put on my channel, I should do penance, and this penance is doing 2 positive videos. So, the way this sort of series came about is that a long time ago I used to watch a guy called Little Karibo religiously, but I sort of moved on from him a bit, and I've noticed that a lot of people, myself included, deal with a lot of underlying problems that we don't like to publicly portray, and this is something I've dealt with a lot of my life, and I wanted to really give people my tips and sometimes give people my highs and lows and allow people to develop. And I think that's the one thing I really want to emphasize here, is that it's not something that I'm telling you how to live your life. It's just, if you struggle with things like depression and anxiety and things like that, and yes, depression and anxiety are 2 very completely different things, and stress as well. They're 3 completely very different things. They all vary in different degrees. But I want to be able to give people ways to cope, coping mechanisms as I referred to. Now, you're probably thinking, how am I qualified for this? Well, for those of you who don't know, I've dealt with depression with most of my life, approximately 8 years, so considering that as 10 years, you take about 3 years to develop, five years really to develop thought, that's really 3 years that I haven't dealt with depression, and this depression was really brought on by the death of my grandmother, who I was closest to in about year 5, but I definitely felt like a burden a lot of my life to a lot of people who I surround myself with still to this day. I got asked by a psychiatrist. I think this is one of the most interesting questions I've ever been asked in a psychiatric meeting. Do I want to be cured of my depression, or is it ingrained into me? And I think for me, it's a core part of my life. It both motivates me and demotivates me. It motivates me to be definitely a better person constantly, day after day, and try to improve other people's lives around me. However, it does make me consider every action I do in every moment. So whether or not it's saying hello, whether or not it's saying goodbye, I always get into political semantics with myself. I dealt with social anxiety last year, and for those who don't know what social anxiety is, it's when you fear going outside because you don't know what's out there. And to me, that is the absolute worst feeling in the world. I think the only way it could be worse is having agoraphobia, to be honest. It's definitely something that cuts you up very deeply, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with. And it's often brought upon a traumatic experience. My traumatic experience may come out one day, guys, but for then, I think you guys will appreciate me not telling you, because it is quite dramatic. But the first tip I want to give is the importance in this episode will definitely highlight the emphasis I place on trying to learn and adapt my morals to be a better person. And the way you can do this is by what I refer to as learning, is looking at what other people do and what other people value, and then try to put them into your own lives and take them upon as your own values. So, this episode will look at 3 positive role models in my life. And I mean, these guys are all male, because I say guys, so don't go gender shaming on me, but the main reason why they are male is I think that male positive role models are definitely something that we overlook in society. I mean, we look at people, look at the people who get the attention in the media that are male. Donald Trump, Eminem, Drake, Marilyn Manson, Winston Churchill. Even though these guys are apart from history to now, they are guys that we definitely still place a lot of emphasis on. And I think for me, personally, that makes it really hard. I think they find that a lot of juvenile young offenders and things like that is mainly because they did not have a positive male role model in their life. So I'm going to give you guys 3 positive role models in my life who are really important to me. As someone I place on pedestals, really. I think that I was still my 13-year-old self. As soon as someone stuffed up once, I was like, yeah, no, they're not a part of my life anymore. I'm perfect. Fortunately, that's not how life goes, and I think a lot of people need to understand that these people are flawed, but I'm not trying to bring to life their flaws. I'm definitely trying to highlight their positives about them, because they are absolute legends, to say a word. But so, each sphere, so I refer to spheres as people. If you don't know what a sphere is, it refers to, so you have your personal sphere, which is your inner you. You then have your family, that's another sphere. I had to say YouTube, so my YouTube career is something that's definitely, it's not like work, but it's pretty close to it. So it's definitely going to look at a YouTube friend, someone that I really aspire to be like, and then a celebrity. So you have your third sphere, and most outer sphere of a celebrity. And I know a lot of people use celebrity role models, but for their results. But I was very lucky as a child to be graced with a personal role model who I still look up to this very day, and I carry a photo with me on my phone, as he's actually my background on most things, is a photo of me and him from when I was about 7 years old. And I know that introduction probably makes it sound like, it's probably, a relative or something like that. But the first role model is my grandfather, William Black. Yes, pictured on the screen is me and my grandfather. Coincidentally, that's a photo. Yeah, so me and my grandfather, where to start? I think me and my grandfather were really just had a connection. I think you could have said we're nearly Siamese to be exact. I absolutely love my grandfather. The relationship we had is something I hope a lot of young males can find, because I think it fosters a really positive upbringing, no matter how bad circumstances are. And I think that's something that is really underrated. And I think if you guys are interested, you need someone and you want to use my grandfather, I'd be more than welcome. I remember when I was a child, I used to think that it was so silly that my grandfather wasn't a saint. Yes, a naive little Year 6 James Catholic boy. Why isn't my grandfather a saint? But that's something that we definitely have to look past. So I'm going to refer to him as Bill from now on, because that's what I used to call him. So, he is my greatest role model in my life, and he is the most positive person there ever was. And there is something that a lot of people are going to say is, oh, okay, so you've got them, you get to see me every week. My grandfather passed away 5 years ago, but my grandfather continues to be such a positive role model in my life. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's a bit romanticized because he's passed and you can't make any more flaws. Yes, that's true, but for me, what he's taught me is something that I think a lot of people should understand. So, my grandfather was born in the late 1930s, so that's about, 70 years ago now? Oh, no, nearly 80 years ago now, to Anglo-parents. So it would have been 80 next year. William Black was my grandfather. He's never the greatest influence on my life, as because he demonstrated the values he demonstrated. Kind, welcoming, and a genuine person. It was something I admired. My grandfather, you could definitely tell he was Scottish. He had the Scottish blood. His father was Scottish, and he was definitely thrifty on his money. My grandfather always emphasized to me, it's not about how much money you have, it's how you use your money. You can have $20 and go see a movie and have the best day of your life, or you can have $20 million and do the same thing repetitive over and over again, and you lose that enjoyment. And that's something my grandfather really taught to me. And I think that's something a lot of people need to understand, is that my grandfather wasn't rich, but he was rich as a person. And that's something I really try to value in him. So he was raised 10 minutes south of where I live. And by the 1950s, it was the main source of income for his household. So my grandfather's father remarried and left, and my grandfather was forced to drop out of school and get a trade. My grandfather, for me, is this poverty and this placement in an adult environment really fast-tracked his childhood. So he didn't have much of a childhood. 14, he's already the sole income earner. For those who don't know, back in 1950s Australia, women didn't work. It sounds really bad, but that's the truth. Now, the story I admire most about my grandfather is something I really want to share. It's a very personal story, but my grandfather found the equivalent of what is now $100,000 in a wallet in a telephone box. He had a choice. Does he take the $100,000 and probably feed the family for the next 3 months? Or does he live by his virtues and return the money to the owner? My grandfather actually tracked down the owner and gave her the money, and he said that the smile on her face was worth more to him than any value, any put of currency. He gave her something like $100 dollars back in those days. £100 might have been, actually. And, that fed the family for throats. And, the mum was, gosh, William, why'd you, not take the money? And he said, look, it's just my virtues. This virtuous lifestyle and principles my grandfather believed in me is what inspired me to adapt my values. And he made me really appreciate the mundane things in the world, such as family and education. Definitely education is something I really didn't value for a long time. I thought it was stupid. Why do we go to school to learn the same pointless shit to do a stupid test? But my grandfather really shifted that, because I think a lot of people are sick of the word lucky. I wrote my creative writing piece about this. Sorry guys, my script's gone missing. No, but yeah, I wrote my creative writing piece about this. I think a lot of kids these days are sick of hearing the word lucky, because lucky implies you achieve something without merit, in my opinion. I wasn't lucky. My grandfather worked his ass off, so I would have a great opportunity. And so did my father, and so did my other parents, and my parents. Everyone worked their ass off to give me that great opportunity. And it wasn't really until year 10 that I appreciated education, because it meant that I was doing something, and I was learning something, and I was constantly evolving as a person. I think there's one line in my creative writing piece that really sums up my grandfather perfectly. Scanning the room, I realised there was no trophies on the mantles or certificates on the wall. There were just photos of those who meant the world to him. And for those who want a vivid picture of this, my grandfather used to live where he lived. It was a big, like a large white living room, and there was photos everywhere. There was photos of me, photos of my relatives, photos of him, and a lot of photos. And it always so much inspired me, but I thought it used to think it was so silly. Like, my grandfather, had a degree. Why isn't the degree up on the wall? Other people have marriage certificates. Other people have, like, big paintings. But he had photos. And that always interested me. Because, as a materialistic kid, as most kids are, I thought, like, what the heck is he going on about? Definitely the hardest thing about my grandfather is trying to maintain that positivity. For those who don't know, I don't practice a traditional religion. But I believe that my grandfather's resting in heaven because that's where my grandfather wanted to rest. And for me, I have conversations with my grandfather. One of the best examples of this was I had a fight, a pretty bad fight, and that's what once said a lot of my life, but that's not the story for today. It's a story for another time. Maybe an 18th or Christmas birthday treat. Maybe that would be the story. But I had a dream, and this person was chasing me, and I was looking anywhere to get a room and just to stay safe. And my grandfather opened the gates of heaven. I assume it sounds very stupid, and he yelled at that person to stay away, back away. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't value, is that a lot of people think that if you don't practice a religion, you don't believe in anything. But my grandfather is someone I aspire to be like, and I have that connection still with him, whether it's a spiritual connection, I think that's the best way, or an existential connection really with him. And that's something that, if I ever get angry, I walk away from things and I just talk to someone. However, it's definitely hard to focus on such positive things when there isn't always positivity surrounding you. For those who don't know, Australia has a very unique education system in the fact that I just finished my HSC, which is my Year 12 exams. It's one of the most stressful times of the year. It would not surprise me how many psychologists get booked just to see HSC students. At my school, for example, we had it wasn't just one school, but several schools have dedicated psychiatrists just to look at kids and look at what their problems is. Why are they studying as hard? Why aren't they getting the results? Now, this person is a YouTuber friend of mine, and just so I want to be upfront with you guys, he has approved what I'm about to say. And he is someone that I think, he's still, I think he's relatively young. I don't know what his age is. He's one of the few people that actually don't know how old they are, but he's relatively young. But it's a person I aspire to be like. And I know people will be like, it's Noobs, isn't it? No. It's Gypsy King. The craziest thing for me was I remember Joey messaged me saying, hey man, I really need a GFX artist. So if you don't know, Joey's the head coach. Joey's 681 Shadow is the organizer of the CPC, and I was watching a Gypsy King video at the time, and CPC week 3, and I was like, whoa, Gypsy King's in this league, and Joey's offered me a position. And I was like, you know what, I'll take it. It sounds like a really crazy thing for a lot of people, because I'm being 100% honest with you guys that I literally joined the CPC for the sole reason that I'd gain an insight into Gypsy King. Because Gypsy King used to leave likes on my videos and comments, be like, hey man, really nice video. For a lot of people, someone I don't really normally get a lot of comments on, that was really just inspiring to me, that to have someone that you place on a pedestal compliment something you do, really elevates you to that same level. And you said, I'm not trying to say I'm big-headed, but it's something that a lot of people don't value, I think. It's like that great saying, it's often used in relationships, one compliment can make your day from the right person. And for a while, it was Gypsy King, you know. Gypsy King could tell me, like, you tucked your shirt in today, boy. It was good, nice. I'd be like, whoa, Gypsy. Thanks, man. The crazy thing is about Gypsy, and I always find that, I love this story, but I find that the people with the most talent are normally the most humble. And I don't mean like how they act and all that, but I find that like when you truly get to know someone, they are incredibly humble. Gypsy's one of those guys. Like, Gypsy's the type of guy that I reckon, like, if he gains a sub, like he gets the email notification, like he messages them, like, personally thanking them, like, hey man, I'm really glad you enjoyed my content, because I just see that as the Gypsy is the sort of person Gypsy is. I mean, I watch his videos religiously, and people used to say, shut up about Gypsy King, we get it, he's a great guy. And like, for me, that positivity and wanting people to do well and fostering that culture is something that people need to be aware of. If you foster a culture of positivity, other positive people will come into your life. And his presence is as a role model, and I think unknowingly to him, it's something that he doesn't want. He doesn't want to be seen that way, but people see him that way because he's such a great guy. In addition, Gypsy isn't a great Pokemon player, but also possesses a great breadth of knowledge on a range of relevant topics, in which he's always willing to provide his opinion on the matter, but he does it in a way where he articulates his thoughts well enough that anyone can understand them, and you can at least be like, hey Gypsy, nice opinion, man, I can really appreciate that. And these opinions have influenced my way of thinking, my cognitive thinking, because also, not the fact that you can probably say, oh, Gypsy King, you probably think of very highly because you live in the same state. It's more of a thing of like, whoa, this man is probably not that much older than me, but he possesses so much knowledge. And that really inspires me, because when I was a kid, I used to think being the smartest kid in the room was the absolute pinnacle. I know, it sounds stupid, right? Like, if you can possess knowledge, you're the absolute pinnacle of that room. You know, you might not be able to know what 4 times 4 is in a classroom of kindergartens. Every kindergartner should look up to you. Sounds stupid, right? But Gypsy King always just seemed to have that way of... I think the best story for that is that one of my mates didn't want to go to uni, and he came to a Hamlet lecture. And he said that the Hamlet lecture spoke so eloquently that it inspired him to go to uni. That's what Gypsy does for me. There was a time where I was considering quitting League, quitting YouTube. I just wasn't having fun. And then someone like Gypsy comes in the scene, and you just watch his videos, and you go, wow, this man injects so much positivity into a... I think negative scene is probably the most accurate word here. But he does it in such a way that it inspires other people to keep it moving forward, and that is something that we all need so we can all progress forward, and it is something that we heavily underrate as a group of people. Now, that's the 2 spheres done, so you have your personal, your larger sphere. Now, thirdly, a celebrity. This celebrity is someone I admire because of his ability as a lyricist and also as an educator, and that's Akala, sorry. I'm new to pronunciations, guys. I'm sorry about that. But Akala is someone that I could have chosen from a countless list of revolutionaries: Martin Luther King, Napoleon Bonaparte, Nelson Mandela. Now, Akala is someone I've only started watching recently. But the other guy I was thinking of is probably much better for another video, because I'm going to use his saying in it. And as I said, guys, at the start of the video, this is not just about trying to single out singular people, but just try to go... In James Black's spheres of life, the 3 spheres, these are people who are positive in his life. Now, Akala is someone who's only recently come into my life, probably the last 2 weeks. I've been watching him religiously. So for those who don't know, I love zoning out to the gift of spoken verse in terms of lyrics. I think that lyrics are very underrated in modern music genres. I know I get a lot of shit from Lewis all the time because it's like, how do you listen to Australian hip-hop? There's something wrong with it, James, or wrong with you. And I go, Lewis, mate, you're right. Something wrong with me, eh? But Akala, the interesting thing about Akala is that Akala is not also just an English crime rapper from the descents of Jamaica, but he also focuses on, as an educator, several issues, global issues, such as, predominantly, really, the focus on systematic prejudice and the underlying issues of race in prevalent predominant white societies, by Africans towards other Africans and white Africans. The quote I love by Akala is that Akala says, it says, I go to these kids and teach them, tell them to write lyrics, and they go, I'm going to kill that, beep, I'm going to shoot that, beep, die, beep, die, beep. And he goes, but when I turn to them and I say, I'm going to kill a honky, they tell me, I can't say that. That's because they value white lives more than their own, which is a great inequality. And that quote is so powerful. It's just like, how do you think of that? Like, you've taken a whole genre of music of hip-hop, which focuses on being the baddest. Like, I've got a Glock in my pocket. Bang, bang. But you say, why do we devalue the life of our brothers and sisters? That's the true great inequality. And that's something that really just speaks to me. Because think about it like this, right? He's essentially saying that certain people value lives in two ways, based off the ethnicity of one another. And that we are willing to kill one another if our life isn't worth it. I mean, think about it like this, right? You used to, in Australia, used to be able to shoot an Aboriginal and get paid for it. It sounds broken, but the white people, predominantly white people, went around. It was called Lemisian civilization, also referred to as a white man burn. They thought they were doing the world a favor by going to a bunch of all these primitive countries and educating them. But the paradox in that is that a lot of these primitive societies, according to these predominant global powers, actually valued things heavily that we don't do today. So, for example, environmental sustainability. The concept of ownership in Aboriginal society was something that was not really used. It wasn't so much that you owned a house and you built a house on the land and you owned the land where the house resides, but more so the fact you came from the land and you worked the land and then returned to the land, which I think is such an interesting concept. But Akala really tries to put that out. And the way he raps, he doesn't rap with putting big swear words in, like F word, say this, but he raps about things that really just tickle a nerve, and it's just something for me that absolutely I just want to listen to like a lyric now, it's just so carried away by him. It's just such a powerful song. Like, he absolutely just makes you want to question, where do you sit in this world? And I know this is like something like saying, hang on, isn't he meant to be a positive role model? Sometimes a self-perception and identity is the most important thing that we need. And I find that with depression, you are at the bottom of the barrel. You don't identify with anyone. You don't have that connection. And sometimes it takes that self-awareness. I mean, I was a dickhead for the first 15 years of my life, 16 years really. I was an absolute dickhead. But I never realized that. I thought I was the kingpin. But for me, that self-awareness of being a dickhead in the last 2 years has flipped my life on its head, because it now makes me realize that to be a better person and feel a better happiness, I need to understand where I sit as a person and really try to evaluate what I believe in. But back to the subject of Akala, something like a lyric like this, right? Carried Away is his song. If you look it up, it only has 189,000 views, which is a lot, but at the same time, it's such a beautiful word. Sometimes I get carried, she carried him 9 months just to have him carried back. And it's about the soldiers not returning home and the value we place on war and that militarism and patriotism towards it. But you don't think about that, do you? You just think that there's a conflict in the Middle East at the moment, or conflict in whatever country there is, and you think, gosh, the reason there's a conflict there is because there's bad people there. But what is the impact for us? I mean, that self-awareness and I'm a history. I want to classify myself as a history major. I'm a history buff. I love history, but it really doesn't inspire to a fact. But it just that value and identity is something that I think a lot of people who are depressed would say that they feel out of touch with themselves. I know when I felt depressed, I didn't know who I was. After I had that fight, I didn't know what I valued. I didn't know who I was as a person. I thought I was a great person, but I realized that I was a great person to few and an absolute prick of a person to many. And I think that self-awareness ultimately changed my whole life, because that self-awareness gave me a new lease on life, and realized that I believe so much heavily in karma that I now have an opportunity to change my life. But to understand that you can change your life, you need to understand where you sit in life. And I think that's something that a lot of people undervalue. I think someone like a Carla is looking at life thinking there's so many prevalent issues from my perspective on the culture within black society, and I use the term black society as those of dark skin or melatonin, that he makes people understand that issues like racism aren't just one race against another. It's one race towards the same, to another group of people in the same race. And I think that's something really interesting. And the other thing too is that he highlights other parts of history that haven't been touched on. The one thing I was really interested by was his speech on this only successful slave revolution in history is by the people of Haiti. And they overthrew all the slave masters. They beat France, and that when France wanted to reinvade them, they paid something over 100 years. They paid like 91 million francs. Only finished paying that reparation in 1950 something. And that's something that really just shifts my whole view. I knew Haiti was the center of the slave trade, but that view is something that, with that new knowledge that you acquire, you really start to value, where do you sit on the pyramid? Are you a good person? Is what your issue is to put in perspective. For me, the thing was, I was overreacting so much to a lot of things that was more emotion, that I couldn't control it. And I need people in my life that can make me focus on the better things in life by putting my life into perspective. The struggle of my grandfather, the people like Akala, inspire me to keep moving forward. My grandfather, the issue of poverty, but he's someone that will definitely be touched on more videos about my positivity in my life. But his ability to understand that no matter the situation, live by your virtues. That's something I think that's incredible. He could walk away from anything. He could make you feel like you used to go to his house and you used to think you've been sleeping there for the past however long you lived, because that's how welcoming he was as a person. And that the reward is so important, and it's self-understanding and self-perception, which we can't really do unless we hold a mirror up to ourselves. But we can't hold a mirror to ourselves if we've never made a mistake. And that's something that we need to understand as people, that we only understand how to move forward when we see the mistake. Because sometimes the most irritating things about ourselves are things we can't change. We might not be able to grow 3 feet taller. We might not be able to shrink 3 feet taller. We might, have one side of our body works well and we can control it, but the other side, unfortunately, we can't. And that's what we need to understand. And people like Carla really put your life in this perspective, because the amount of prejudices he's experienced personally has led him to grow as a person, to be as an influential person who gets requested to talk to people. Also, it's important to realize the importance. Okay, sorry, that's a bit of a tautology, but apart from that, the video's been going on for 29 minutes. Also, I always think it's important to recognize those people that keep your life positive and keep you focusing on positivity, and you can see the rewards at the end of it, whether it's from a personal connection or through a computer screen connection like Gypsy King. I mean, definitely when I was doing the HSC, one thought that always kept crossing my mind is that, I don't know what Gypsy's education is like, but from what I was thinking was, one day this HSC thing will be irrelevant, and someone like Gypsy King is living his life really damn positive, and he's changing the culture where he's been thrown into a scene. and he's sort of been given a lot of praise because of the way he acts, and that is very rewarded praise. You may be able to be that way stage one day. And that's something that we don't understand. Because we see people doing well, and we don't want to do well. We want them to suit to our level, when instead we should be trying to raise ourselves to their level. And that's why I always try to live my life, to anyone that lives my life, to the words of, it's an economic principle, appreciate while they depreciate. Always focus on the development of yourself before you criticize another, because I'm telling you right now, unless you can identify 1,000 flaws within yourself, don't criticize one flaw in another. Because I know personally that I have 1,000,000 flaws. I don't have the best haircut. I don't look the best. I don't eat well. I don't work out enough. I break my promises. But all these flaws make me the person I am. So instead of trying to put someone else down, because they probably know what their flaws are, I always try to build people up. That really brings me to the last idea. The reason you need positivity is I like to use the metaphor of a castle, and I talked to a psychologist about this, and she really likes the metaphor, and she actually wants to use it with people. But I'm going to explain it in a second. The idea is that a castle relies upon the fact that you have a little for those who don't know, in castles, they used to build, have little communities and hubs in there, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand, is that a lot of people just think, oh, the king and queen used to live there, and it was all peaceful and all that. And that's really what it is there's a little culture and hub within the community, is that people used to work there it wasn't just one people. And I like to use the thing of, when there's an invasion, the walls come crashing down, and people have a choice. People leave because they're scared of what's going to happen to you, and that they see that you as the king have been taken down a pedestal. You've been sitting up on this big chair, and it's just come crashing down beneath you. But the real people you want in the world, and when I say the real people you want, are the positive people who, when everyone else is running away, they've been waiting for a chance to escape your perfect world, because it hasn't been perfect for them. The positive people, instead of running away, build the walls back up, and they make sure you get rest and can sleep, and make you feel better about yourself while they build up the walls, so that you feel safe with your own insecurities. Because what people don't know is the walls we use to prevent ourselves from talking to other people are the walls of our insecurities. We can have 1,000,000 excuses not to talk to someone. They have a better haircut than me, their voice sounds better than me, they have a much more successful career. But that means nothing if you are willing to put your walls down and let someone in, and put the drawbridge down and let those people come into your life to better yourself. Because that idea of self-improvement through the use of positive role models is something that we don't understand and value as a society as much as we used to. If people enjoy this type of videos, please leave a like, leave a comment. I will try to put some fancy graphics in and things like that. If there have been, you better leave a like, because it takes lots of effort. And until next time, peace.